this is a very simple explanation of MQTT, which is a protocol used for devices to talk to each other in home automation. Doing this primarily for the xLights world, but it fits wherever you're coming from if you're any interested at all in home automation. And I'm doing this because a lot of people are put off by the terminology that's used in MQTT. MQTT itself, once you get your head around this bit I'm going to explain, is actually very simple and very easy to implement. It's very easy to maintain. It's a really good protocol. But the terminology can really throw you when you first come to it. People talk about brokers, they talk about topics, they talk about messages, they talk about subscribe and publish, and it's a publish and subscribe bus. It's very hard to get your head around if you can't equate that to something in real life. So I've found as a matter of course it's easier to explain things when you compare it to something else. So today I'm going to compare it to a Zoom room. Most people are familiar with the idea of a Zoom room. You have a Zoom server and you have Zoom rooms, and you have people calling in and listening to conference calls, or talking and listening to conference calls. And that can be used as a really good way of explaining how MQTT works. So basically it's an analogy, which is I used to be a night school lecturer, I found very useful. And so if you imagine now in our analogy, then where we've got listening and talking in our Zoom room, we equate the Zoom room server to the MQTT broker. So when somebody says MQTT broker, think of Zoom room server. When somebody talks about a topic in MQTT, think of a Zoom room. So you could have different topics for different rooms. And when somebody talks about subscribing to a topic, basically think of that as listening. So if somebody says subscribe to a topic, think of it as listening to a topic. Same thing with publish. So publish, when you publish to a topic, think of that as talk. So if you remember this slide, that will give you a pretty good idea of how MQTT works. So if we go to MQTT now, so it's that broker. So there's a single broker with multiple topics, and they could literally be thousands of topics. There's no physical limit to that. They're just but think of them as individual rooms in a server. And we subscribe, so we're listening, or we subscribe and talk. And it has some real big advantages, because one of the big advantages of that is that these devices don't need to know about these devices. Every single automation device that you've got in your network only needs to know about the broker. So it needs to know about one physical IP address of the broker, which is a lot easier than some of the other protocols like HTTPS and all the rest of it. It's a nice, simple way of setting things up. All you need to know is there's a single broker, and you subscribe or publish and subscribe to that single topic. So once you've got your head around this, it's actually, as well as being a very efficient protocol in terms of network and bandwidth and CPU usage you could put it on a Raspberry Pi and it'll run about less than 1% CPU. It's very, very good for doing home automation. And because you've got multiple topics, you can have some bulbs, for example, listening on one topic, i.e. subscribing on one topic, some bulbs subscribing on another topic. So you can divide things up, and you can do automation at a simple level with that. So you could, for example, have a door opening that turns on these bulbs. You could have a motion sensor turning on these bulbs. If you want to do, and that is great for a lot of things. And obviously if you want to do far more complex things, you can then add to the equation, you can add something like Node-RED or Home Assistant that can subscribe to various topics and publish to various topics. And that adds the element of extra logic. So it can say, don't switch on those bulbs unless that door opens at this time of day, or don't switch on this bulb. If, you've got all kinds of, the sky's the limit. You can use things like Node-RED or Home Assistant to add extra logic to it. And there's more to MQTT. I mean, I'm giving you the basics here. One little bit I'll talk about is that with topics, when you publish to something, you can publish in what they call a not retained or a retained manner. And if you think of retained as being the last message recorded, not every message, but the last message recorded. So if, for example, this bulb was unplugged and something happened over here and a message came in, if you plug that bulb in, it wouldn't know what the last message that was sent on that path. Whereas if that message was sent as a retained format, when that bulb came back online, it would look, oh yeah, it's switched off, and it would know to switch off. Now, there are some other more detailed explanations of that, but that's the basics of it. And one last bit I'll do in terms of basic explanations is a topic typically can be broken down into lots of different parts. And think of that a bit like a file structure where you've got high-level directory, low-level directory, and directories, subdirectories, and all the rest of it. And so you can have a topic split just like you would a directory structure by a slash there. So topic 1 could be topic 1, part 1. That's a topic. And that bulb could be just listening to that full topic. But you can listen to parts of a topic. So you could have a device over here that's listening to all three of what's happening with all three of those bulbs by listening to the top part of the project, of the topic, which again is a very powerful thing. Now, this has just been the introduction. If you want more detail, there's a very good YouTube site called The Hookup, and the guy there does and I'll put a link to it, I think there's a brilliant explanation of more details about quality of service and a bit more about the, how this all works. But if you watch this first, this is designed to be a primer to get your head around what MQTT is. You should understand what a broker is, what a topic is, what a message is, and a lot of the basics that I've not seen really well described in other sites. So hopefully this has been of some use. I'll now do some more detailed ones of how it's used in xLights and all that kind of good stuff as well. Cheers for now.